Good evening. My name is Mr. Dasko, for those of you who haven't heard already. I wanted to welcome you tonight to our second annual winter concert. What you see before you is the beginning orchestra. There are fourth graders who, many of them, studied over the summer to learn their first 8 notes, and they've gone from here to now playing together. Please, welcome.
I'll have papers here. Good evening, everybody. Very well done. In the instrumental portion of tonight's program, we'll be showing you some of the musical elements that we've been learning. The music that we play will use these elements to perform music of various different cultures and periods of history. Since the definition of music is organized sound, we'll show you examples of how changing the two most important organizational elements of rhythm, meaning sound that's divided into measurements of time, and the other element called pitch, which is the alteration of the frequency of sound. And those two elements are going to create the typical sounds of different cultures. The first piece on our program is a composition that I actually wrote for our beginning orchestra. It is called Buenas Notas Juntas, or Good Notes Together. In it, all instruments play the same note, but in varying durations or lengths of time. In between the notes are silences called rests, right guys? We hope you'll feel how the silences affect the feeling of the music. Now, some of our student musicians will be introduced before our pieces are played, and they will briefly explain things. It's always a critic in every crowd. They will briefly explain things that you can listen for that will exemplify the typical elements that create these sounds of different cultures. We will be hearing music from the Caribbean islands, songs inspired by the cultures of the British Isles, China, Germany, Latin America, and the Spanish-speaking countries of the world, Russia, Japan, and of course, the North American blues, and some gypsy-inspired Hungarian music. I hope you enjoy our musical offerings, and we wish you a very happy season. just a real quick word on what we're doing here. These are pieces of music that are from our excellent method book, which we call the Essential Elements. Some of you are familiar with them. There are two versions of this. One is for strings and one is for woodwinds and brass. We play some pieces that are really written for the strings, but what we've done is we've arranged to add in our illustrious woodwinds and brass and percussion players also. So we've refashioned these pieces so that they are now symphonic pieces instead of just string pieces. The first one is a very nice song. These are just in the style of like British pieces or whatever. It's called Song for Christine. Actually, some of you are familiar with the smart music that we talked about earlier. A lot of these songs that we're playing out of these books are in their software already, so they can actually practice these at home. So we urge the kids to take out that software and their instruments every day and work on those a little bit to get really good at that. The next song is called Rolling Along. You may recognize it by a different name. Was this supposed to be for the first one? Okay, this speech was supposed to go with the first song.
Song for Christine, from our book Essential Elements for Strings by Michael Allen, Robert Gillespie, and Pamela Telejohn Hayes, with arrangement by John Higgins. This song is from the comprehensive stringing method book called Essential Elements, which we call EE. Mr. Shilikowski created new parts for the flute, clarinet, and trumpet, and drums so the rest of the orchestra could join the strings. We start this pleasant song on a high D and go down the notes of a D major. In this song, we have to proceed in the stepwise motion, like in a scale, which is like walking the steps of the staircase one at a time. But then we have to skip some notes sometimes, which can be a challenge. In order to play the song, we had to know all the notes of the D major scale. That means we had to know how to play a C sharp and an F sharp. But when I played the Abigail has to play an E, which comes out as the same note that I played. We call this transposition. Some instruments are tuned in different keys, like the French horn, which is in F, and the trumpet and clarinet are in B. But you'll just notice it all comes out sounding rather nicely.
Thank you. So that was actually about the song for Christine, which we just heard. But now we have a speech about, don't we have a speech about the rolling along also? Or do you have the speech on rolling along? Okay, I forgot who I assigned the speeches to.
My name is Jada Persad. This song is another one from the comprehensive string method book called Instrumental Elements of String. Mr. Solokovsky created new parts for flute, clarinet, trumpet, and drums, so the rest of the instruments could join the strings. It's a little easier than the song for Christine because only need to know 3 notes in order to play it. You'll notice it sounds a lot like another song that has a different name.
We just had to add that extra little thing at the end there. We call that a vibra slap. So our beginner orchestra is going to file off, and after they file off, we're going to let them off first so that we don't stampede and run them over. And then our intermediate orchestra will file on. And you'll see now, our beginner orchestra, a lot of these folks, well, you guys are going to file off, right? We'll meet you down there. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Bring your instruments down and come back and join us after you put your instrument away. The beginner orchestra, a lot of you know, a lot of these folks, these young folks, joined me in the summertime for a quick, like a 6-week or 5 or 6 week boot camp, where we taught them all the basics of their instruments, and so that they were prepared to kind of hit the ground running in September, ready to jump right into the orchestra, already knowing something about their instruments. The next group, of course, these people have a legacy already. They started with us last year, so you'll see, obviously, they look a little bigger, and they are definitely a little more, their music abilities and knowledge is already more developed. And you will recognize that our last song, because we actually are repeating one song that we did last year, the Hungarian Dance number 2 by Liszt. And I think if you heard last year's, you'll notice some changes that we think, we've sort of finessed some of it. We've gotten a little bit better at this. So we'll have our kids taking their places and some comments in just a moment.